There's controversy over the induction of Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afo-Broni as the new Vice-Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba, today, Monday. Lawyer Professor Raymond Atuguba says President Akufo-Addo would be abetting an illegality if he goes ahead with the planned induction. According to him, a case pending at the Supreme Court challenging the removal from office of Professor Mauto Avoke, that's the former Vice-Chancellor, makes it travesty to the rule of law if the president takes part in the ceremony. He adds the Supreme Court has fixed 31st October 2018 as the date for judgment in this case. Now, presenting reasons for his objection to the induction ceremony in an elaborate piece, Professor Atuguba argues that the removal of Professor Avoke was influenced by ethnocentric sentiment. We'll bring you details of that piece shortly and also give you a background to what led to all of this. But in 2017, a Winneba High Court ordered Professor Mauto Avoke to step aside until a case brought against him and the university's governing council is determined. The order was made in a case brought before the court by one Supi Kofi Kwayera, who insisted that the Vice-Chancellor and the Finance Officer were operating under the institution's defunct governing council. I'll be bringing my colleague Joseph Akable shortly to give us all the details of that particular piece written by Professor Atuguba, and a brief background and more details to what led to the removal of the former Vice-Chancellor. So that program is planned today. And we've already got our men stationed at the University of Education, Winneba, to bring us all the updates. Now, let's come to Professor Atuguba's concerns. And he was actually the lawyer of the former Vice-Chancellor, but decided not to pursue the case anymore. We are joined by lawyer Van Boven Swansea Asian. He's a lecturer with the University of Cape Coast Law Faculty. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time.
Good morning and welcome.
Well, there seems to be a faint line when it comes to respecting injunctions or processes involving getting injunctions. We've heard from various lawyers that, well, you can either decide to respect the process or you can decide to go ahead. Do we know exactly if the law says anything specific or emphatic with regards to injunctions or injunction processes and how they should be respected?
Very well. The two things I would share this morning are that, one, from the Supreme Court decision way back in the year 2012 in the case of Opoku against Liber, France, SAS, and another, the court was explicit in saying that the mere issuance of a writ would not preclude a party from exercising his rights. This was the position of the Supreme Court, which, to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, has not changed since the year 2012. That once a writ is issued in respect of a case, the mere issuance of the writ does not preclude any party from exercising their right thereto. My understanding and interpretation of this is that unless and until there is an injunction application which is yet to be heard or which has been granted expressly prohibiting a particular party in a case from doing ABC, then according to this particular authority, then any of the parties could go ahead to exercise their rights. So that is what I have to say on this. I would make a quick allusion to the case involving, I believe, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, when through the processes as prescribed by the Constitution, she was also removed from office, and subsequently there was a new electoral commissioner who was sworn in her stead. When there were allegations as to the rightfulness or otherwise of the sitting, again, I believe the court also came out expressly in saying that if whatever has been done by the presidency or by using the prescribed constitutional processes were unlawful, those procedures or those processes could always be set aside by a court of competent jurisdiction. So to the extent that there was no express prohibition against any party from doing a particular act, that party, according to the law, would definitely be free to go ahead to exercise their rights, so long as they are not in direct conflict with a decision of the court of law.
And so you're saying that based on the law, the university administration, as it is now, is safe to go ahead with this induction ceremony?
Certainly. And the caveat is that unless the university has been served with an injunction prohibiting it from going ahead with this particular induction exercise, the university is always free to go ahead, because the law says that the mere issuance of a writ, and by extension I would understand this to mean that the mere fact that there are pending proceedings in respect of a case does not prevent the parties in the case or any of the parties from exercising their rights thereto. So long as whatever has been purported to be done could always be set aside by a court of competent jurisdiction, that party, I believe, is free to go ahead. Okay. One thing I would quickly add is that, one cardinal principle about the grant of injunctions is that there must have been irreparable damage, or irreparable damage is likely to be caused, for which reason nothing could be done in compensation thereof. But so long as the act could be set aside, so long as the party involved could be compensated adequately or otherwise, then the act, in my view, according to my understanding of the law, could always be done.
All right. Here's another argument that Professor Atuguba raises. He says that the court has set aside October 31, that's next month, to give a verdict on this case. And so he actually thinks that, well, why not wait until then? That's just next month. I mean, in the eyes of the law, how does this look?
It is an option that is open to any of the parties to wait. The question is that does the act that is sought to be done constitute something prejudicial to the interest of any of the parties? The follow-up question to that is that could anything that flows from this particular intended act, i.e., in this case, the induction ceremony, could it be set aside subsequently? If the answer is yes, then in my considered opinion, the party could go ahead, that is the induction ceremony, based on the facts that I have been given, could go ahead, because there is no express provision against it. Okay. It's an option open to the university authorities to wait until after the judgment has been delivered or not. It is an option, and the learned Professor Atuguba believes that it would be better for the authorities to wait until after the judgment has been delivered. But my humble view also is that there is no express prohibition from the university to go ahead to exercise this latter option, that is to go ahead and then have the induction held.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. Van Boven Swansea ACN is a law lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Let's come back into the studio. My colleague Joseph Akable joins me. Joseph, a brief background to what led to the removal. Obviously, we've mentioned earlier that there was a court case, but give us the chronology to this point.
So it all started in the early part of 2017, where news came out that some officers of the University of Education, Winneba, were under investigation by management of the university. Subsequently, a disciplinary committee came out with a decision that led to some 5 top officers being suspended. That was subsequently affirmed by the governing council. Now, these individuals included the then Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mauto Avoke. They also had Dr. Theophilus Senyo Akoli, who was a finance officer, and Daniel Tete and Mary Ginny. You also had Frank Ousubuatin, were the 5 individuals, top officers, who were affected by various actions taken by management of the university. So it led to their suspension. Now, the issue went to court the first time. A high court ruled in favor of Supi, the assemblyman for the area that you mentioned, who was represented in court by the MP for the area, Honorable Afenyo Makin. And they got a decision in their favor, legitimizing the suspension of these officers. They satisfied, they took the matter up to the Supreme Court. That is the lawyers for these dismissed officers.
And lawyer Atuguba actually claims that his clients, that's the former Vice-Chancellor, were not given a fair hearing.
Yes.
And the Supreme Court quashed the decision of the High Court.
Yes.
So let's go to the details of his piece, quite a lengthy one. He outlines reasons why he believes that this is an ethnocentric attack. He's actually given facts and given reasons why he believes that there's a certain cabal that is attacking people of a certain origin in the country.
Yes, so he talks about the fact that they don't have right names, and in his own words, he lists what he calls strategies. So the strategy one is talking about trying to misuse the courts to remove the UEW officials. And that part says the cabal went to the Winneba High Court for a declaration that the appointments of Professor Avoke and others were unlawful and that they had committed breaches of the Procurement Act and should be removed from office. He says they were not given a fair hearing. He makes the point that the Supreme Court subsequently ruled in their favor. The strategy two is talking about victimizing all persons who try to prevent the misuse of the courts to dismiss the innocent officials. So he makes reference to Dr. Bequin, the local UTAG president who was removed. He also talked about the new president of UTAG, Dr. Duku, who himself was fighting the removal of Dr. Bequin. He has been removed as well by what Professor Atuguba says here.
And he's also talking about the fact that they are all facing disciplinary actions. But he comes to a third point where he talks about the use of state investigative bodies like the BNI and Yoko. What does he state?
So he says at the point they were informed that the BNI and Yoko were carrying out some investigations involving the dismissed officers. He says he wrote to them asking that they make available the findings of wrongdoings that they have discovered, which is the basis for the suspension to enable them respond to. But he says up until date, they've not been able to provide that, which is an indication in his opinion that these bodies don't really have anything on these individuals, and it all forms part of the larger scheme to get them out because of possessing the right names, like he puts it. He goes on to talk about the fact that they've gone back to the courts to misuse the courts again, and he says he immediately filed a case in the Supreme Court for the second time, seeking to cancel out the second very wrongful judgment of the Winneba High Court. The Supreme Court, he says, has fixed 31st of October as the date for judgment in this case. Do you now see why there's a rush to install a new VC before next month? So that is a question that Professor Atuguba is asking.
And let's conclude with his statement about the president participating in this event. He believes that he says that he withdrew legal representation for the former Vice-Chancellor because he saw unseen hands operating to prevent one of the first judges from, doing his job smoothly. But he says that if the president goes ahead to induct this new person, then that confirms to him his initial fears.
So that part of the statement here says, in desperation, the cabal is now moving to their final strategy. Pull in the father of the nation, the first gentleman, the head of government and of the executive, and use him to give a cover of legitimacy over something that is clearly illegal by fixing an induction of a new VC for UEW at a time the president is conducting a central regional tour, so that the president will perhaps unwittingly making a number of statements to the public. That is one, that the illegal removal of Professor Avoke and other officials in Winneba and indeed in other universities is all right and has the support of the president. The illegal installation of the new VC in Winneba at a time the Supreme Court is about to decide his fate next month, and the High Court is also set to decide the fate of the purported successor to Professor Avoke next month, has the support of the president.
Right, thank you very much, Joseph Akable, with those details. We'll bring you more on this. Our men are stationed at the UEW this morning ahead of that induction ceremony slated for 12. We'll bring you more details on that.